Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. We're recording just after the World Juniors have ended, gold medal game. We're going to talk a lot about that first, but obviously joined in by my prospect experts here at the Hockey Writers, Peter Baracchini, Devin Little. Peter, how's it going on right after the World Juniors here? And we have the Women's World Championships coming up too, so we have some more hockey to watch. How's it going?
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit, we're getting spoiled with, the Helenka Gretzky, the World Juniors, and now the Women's World Championship coming up back to back to back. Three amazing tournaments. So I'm looking forward to that. And also, been a bit of hiatus on the show recently. So hopefully we'll, get the rust off. But you know what? Glad to be back and doing the show with you guys.
For sure. And Devin, how's it going? I mean, like I say, hockey is still going on. We've still got some more stuff to watch. And then right away, we're going to have preseason in the NHL. Mm-hmm. So lots of stuff coming up. And it doesn't seem like we have much of a big of an off season.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm excited. This is about as a smooth a transition as you could ask for heading into training camps and whatnot. So yeah, I've enjoyed having hockey in August. I don't know about you guys, but
last time I played hockey in August watched hockey in August was Summer League, and that was really fun. So to see it right now at like the pro levels or junior levels, just as exciting.
If I'm talking hockey in August, it's usually because I'm playing a video game. So yeah,
that's very true.
We're getting set for the new series.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, before we get started here, obviously, our show is being brought to you by the Morning Skate newsletter, daily newsletter delivered to your inbox Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here in the off season, jam-packed with the best hockey stuff on the planet, daily dose of all the news, rumors, history, funnies, quizzes, at least whatever news we have going on in the NHL right now. But World Juniors was probably a big part of that newsletter. So definitely check that out. Put in your information in the morningskate.io, description in the description below there, and you'll get that right in your inbox. Okay, let's get started with the show, guys, and let's talk about the gold medal game first before we get to some other stuff about this. What an insane game. I mean, probably the best I've seen. We were talking before the show, probably 2015, maybe. It's probably the best game. It's been a while since we've seen an entertaining game like that. 2-0 lead for Canada going into the third period. Finland able to tie it up. Goes into overtime, where it looked like Topi Niemela was giving Finland a gold medal by literally inches. Mason McTavish smacks it down right on the goal line and clears it out of the way. Kent Johnson then scores a few minutes later. So insane game. Let's get started with that. Peter, your takeaways from that gold medal game.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. It was insane. And obviously, the last time, I believe the last time that Canada went to overtime in a gold medal game was in that 2018 tournament. No, not 2018. No, 2008 tournament where Matt Halashuk scored the game-winning goal against Sweden. And that was, a thrilling overtime game. Obviously, that was 5-on-5. This is 3-on-3. A little bit more quick pace and a lot of nerves, as you mentioned. Topi Niemela was just inches away from sealing it, getting the golden goal, and then Mason McTavish comes in, plays spoiler or does what Mason McTavish does, because he's been lights out all tournament. And then Ken Johnson going the other way with Logan Stankoven on the 2-on-1. I mean, this is a few things. One, this is why 3-on-3 is awesome. I don't care if it's in for the gold medal game, Stanley Cup. Well, obviously you're not going to do that in the Stanley Cup playoffs because that's the NHL and it probably won't be as fun. But in something like this, quick, fast-paced 3-on-3, we've seen it be successful at the World Hockey Championships as well. I mean, just absolutely dynamic throughout the whole entire game. Canada going up 2-0. Finland claws their way back, especially with their, 12 minutes of penalty kill ice time. 12:08, I believe, was the total amount. It could be wrong, but it was around that range where killed off penalty after penalty, escaped a major penalty with Kasper Puutio, and just found a way to just stick with it. So kudos to Finland as well, because they put up a really great fight and didn't give up at all.
Well, I mean, Canada could have pointed to that if they would have lost that game. They pointed to how many power plays they had and they didn't score on. And Finland had the worst penalty kill in the tournament too. Mm-hmm. So it was set up for them to score a lot of goals if they would have been able to get some. Devin, now what'd you think about that gold medal game? I mean, probably the most drama we've had in hockey in a while. So what'd you think?
Well, talking about kind of leading into training camp, if that doesn't get your blood boiling and ready to see some more high octane hockey, I don't know what will, because like you say, that was entertaining beyond anything you could have expected. Also, if the Anaheim Ducks end up needing a replacement for John Gibson in the future, I think Mason McTavish might be that guy. So interesting development considering he was drafted as a center. But in all seriousness, and kind of on that note, I think just overall, one of my biggest takeaways is, wow, Mason McTavish and Olin Zellweger are Anaheim Ducks. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Look out for that team in like 2 years, because yeah. And then also other quick thing I want to kind of slide in here, and we'll talk about more players here in a second, but I thought just kind of overall, I thought Joakim Kamel showed really well for himself. Scored in that gold medal game and only played just a little over 10 minutes. So limited ice time, and he still made an impact. Still shocked he fell as far as he did in that draft. Kudos to Nashville for scooping him up. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway was just how fun that game was, and the clutch performance by McTavish and then Kent Johnson to put it away.
Yeah, I mean, those two are front and center for the last probably 3 games. I mean, those guys are really good. I mean, stepped up immensely for Canada throughout the, Ridley Gregg going down for injury, and he was probably one of their better forwards as well, and character guy, and did everything for them, penalty killing and all that too. So they had to step up, and McTavish became a checking line center. I mean, quote unquote checking line center, with Dufour and Joshua Roy. So the thing is, he was put into that defense role, and that's what he did. His last play was the defensive play. So probably fitting to end that tournament on that note. So great job for both teams, Canada, Finland, both well deserving of being in that gold medal game. So I mean, silver medal is a loser medal. It's the only medal you get when you lose. So it's unfortunate to get that medal. But the thing is, it takes a few days, and then you're like, oh, we won a silver medal. I mean, yeah, that's usually something that takes a few days to sink in. And it's usually a disappointment at first, but kudos to both teams. Great game and a great finish to the tournament that had some issues with crowds, which we'll talk about later, but great finish to the tournament for sure. All right, let's talk about the other game that happened on that day. A little bit less drama, a little bit, I'd say a little more boring. Bronze medal game, Sweden and Czechia, which, I mean, Czechia was a surprise to be in that bronze medal game, but again, full marks to them. We'll talk about why they're there in a sec, but start with you, Devin. What'd you think about that bronze medal game, and overall thoughts about the whole tournament as a whole?
Well, I'll tell you what wasn't boring, and that was Fabian Lysel's goal in that game, because holy cow, that was speed incarnate. Very good. And then also, like you said, not many people gave the Czechs a chance to be in the top 4, let alone, play for the bronze medal. But they did, and I think they earned the way there, and good on them. Obviously they fell short, but I think that there's a lot of guys on that team that should feel very proud of themselves and should be proud of the way they played in the tournament. Overall, I thought Wallstead stood strong for his team. It's, what was it, a week ago where he had that rough outing, and he talked about how he felt like he let down his country. And from that point on, he did anything but let down Sweden. Full marks to him. If you're not excited about him and you're a Minnesota Wild fan, get with the program, because you should be. And then also just kind of general tournament stuff. I don't know. It is weird having hockey in August, right? It's awesome being a hockey fan having hockey in August, but it is weird. We're not used to this sort of thing. And I think that kind of like you alluded to, the lack of crowds definitely kind of played a role in it. And maybe, the bronze medal game would have been a bit more electric if there was a bit more of a presence in the arena. But all things considered, I think good on these kids for having the opportunity, or good for these kids for having the opportunity to make up this tournament and represent their countries. Some of these kids won't have another opportunity to do it, at least at this stage. And for the ones who, got a gold medal that won't have that opportunity again, good on them. Even the ones who got the silver and the bronze. And what's kind of crazy is that in 4 months, we're going to be talking about this again, because that's when the 23 tournament starts.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's not that far away. You're going to have like teams like Sweden, who's like, we want to rebound. Well, they're going to get a chance to in a few months.
Pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly. And some of the players that had lesser roles were going to be getting bigger ones. So it's going to be interesting to see. All right, Peter, what do you think about bronze medal game and then the tournament in general?
Yeah, I to echo Dylan's sentiments about Czechia. I mean, just powered through, and even though that they only had one win overall, I believe it was one win over or 2 wins overall or something to that effect. They didn't have the most wins out of all the teams in that playoff format, but they still managed to push through. And obviously they did something right because they managed to knock out the US. Jan Mishak was really outstanding for them with 5 goals and 8 points. And, they deserve it. They deserve it. Obviously, everyone's going to point to the fact that, there's no Russia in the tournament. Well, you know what? Doesn't matter. Czechia played hard. They played with everything on the line, and they deserve it. And to even still put up a close game against, Sweden, it's still something that they shouldn't hang their heads in shame about. They managed to take a superpower, to the distance for the most part. And even so, Sweden, kind of disappointing all around because Emil Andre was leading the team in scoring. You didn't get enough from their top forwards. Obviously, Fabian Lezell with his speed and his hands and his edge work at certain points during the tournament stood out, but other players needed to step up. And obviously Lezell scored, Rosen scored. He needed to have a big game, and he did. So bit of bright spots for both of them at the right time. Well, obviously not so much for Czechia, but for Sweden, the best players or key players stood up when they needed to or played well when they needed to. As for the tournament overall, I mean, obviously, crowd size and everything looming with Hockey Canada was going to be the big talking point no matter what. But, obviously we still need to have those conversations. It's important no matter what. And I think also the fact that, it's August. No one really partakes in August hockey that much. Obviously, the Helenka Gretzky plays this tournament most of the time before the season starts as the precursor to the draft scouting season. But for the World Juniors, no one really partakes in this. This is more of a Christmas, holiday tradition in December, January. So obviously, again, this kind of serves up as a precursor. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of these names come back for this tournament coming up in 23 as well. Obviously Connor Bedard with Canada, how is he going to improve on this tournament? Is what's going to happen with some of the other players in the other teams' rosters? Who's going to make that up? So it's going to be interesting to say the least. And obviously overall, despite the crowds, obviously we're watching from our homes because, we can't make the trip all the way out to Edmonton, but at the same time, watching hockey in general, at any point during the year, obviously it's a little bit awkward to watch it in the summer, but hey, we watched the Stanley Cup playoffs in June. What's, a World Junior tournament in August going to be for just 2 weeks, but that's just my thoughts on the tournament itself overall as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you guys. I mean, the thing is, I don't think they were anticipating a lot of crowds because of when it was. I mean, August is usually when people go on vacation, they go traveling, whatever. I mean, they could travel to the World Juniors, I guess. But it's not normal. I really like that the gold medal game did have a decent crowd. Like what they say, 14, 15,000 people were there. It felt like more of an atmosphere for a gold medal game. I was happy about that because I think that was the biggest game you'd want to have a pretty big crowd, especially in Canada with Canada in the gold medal game. I mean, you'd hope that there's a big crowd. So to have 15,000 people in an 18,000 seat arena, I think around there is what Rogers Place has. So we'll see. We'll see what I think most of the crowds will become back to normal in December. I mean, I don't think we're going to see empty arenas there. But overall, I think the tournament was pretty good. I mean, I liked that a lot of the underdog teams were putting up fights, especially in the semifinal.
Yes.
I really loved that. All the games were close. Not the semifinal, the quarter. What's the quarterfinals? One of those ones with all the underdog teams. They were all kept every game close. So and it's the quarterfinals. So I liked that, and I the story about Latvia was a great story throughout the whole tournament. I mean, to have them come and win their first game ever at the World Juniors was awesome to see. So, and I love those stories. So it was great to see that. Okay, let's get to some MVPs from each country. And this little teaser, Adam Kirzenblatt's going to come up with an article on this, but we're going to get a head start on him. MVP from each nation. So we won't each pick ones because we're probably going to have pretty much the same. So we've split them up. So Peter, you're going to go first, and we'll go with the gold medalists, Canada. Who is your MVP for Canada?
I'm really not going to take long to think about this. Mason McTavish. I mean, quick and easy. I mean, it's funny because I had best forward going in as Ken Johnson, and Ken Johnson still played really well, but Mason McTavish was on another level. I mean, I know Dylan called it with him being the best forward, but he just did everything: goal scoring, playmaking, coming back on the back check, and obviously, we've already talked about that miraculous save that he made that. Kept Canada alive for just another minute or so before Ken Johnson scored. So obviously that's a play that was going to be talked about for years. And you know what, considering the season that he had playing all this hockey for, NHL, AHL, junior hockey, Olympics, Memorial Cup, you name it. He's been playing hockey all year round, and he just still had that extra gear going for him. So for him to almost match the Canadian points or most points in a tournament by a Canadian, and almost still be in the record books, but just be behind, 1 point off, just 1 point off. If he would have assisted on that game-winning goal, maybe that would have been a different story. But he was just fantastic, lights out, great all-around game, very competitive, shows no quit, and like Devin said, the Anaheim Ducks has got a good one. So Mason McTavish, MVP for Canada.
Well, I also won MVP for the whole tournament. So
there you go. Yeah. I think that's a bit more important
MVP,
too, no?
Yeah, there you go. MVP definitely for Canada. I mean, he was a force throughout the whole tournament. And he's going to turn 20 in January. So he is at the upper edge. Like, he should dominate.
Still eligible.
To come out in December. We'll talk about that in a second.
It happened.
But that's if Anaheim decides that he's okay to go. I don't think that's going to happen. But like I said, we'll talk about it later. McTavish, I'm captain for a reason too. I mean, and he did everything for that team. I mean, well, like he saved the day. So that's the most you could do as a captain for sure. So McTavish, definitely agree with that one. I've got Finland, and I covered them for most of the tournament, talking about them and their players to watch and stuff like that. So for me, I mean, there's a few guys that really stood out for Finland throughout this tournament. We talked about Joakim Kamel. Atu Ratu had a really good tournament. You can say their goaltender for the last two games was really good in Jatkala too. So, but for me, I'm going to give it to Kamel on this one because you could, like I say, you could give it to a few of the guys, but I think Kamel was probably dangerous for most of the tournament. Roni Hirvonen was another one. This is what I'll do. I'll give it to the whole top line. So I'm going to cheat a bit.
They were.
There you go.
And give it to their whole top line. So Roni Hirvonen, Joakim Kamel, and Atu Ratu, that made up for most of the scoring that they did in the tournament, and were good for almost every game. I mean, even Canada had to put their checking line against them to shut them down. So they're really good group of guys. Again, these are guys that Hirvonen's a second round pick. Kamel was a later round, first round, and then Ratu was a second round pick too. So two guys that kind of dropped off the map. I mean, Ratu, we all know his big thing of being a top 10 pick, dropping all the way to the second round to the New York Islanders. And he probably had, I'd say, a coming out party at this World Juniors.
Absolutely.
And Ratu's I think he's going to be a heck of an NHL player. I mean, he's probably not going to hit the heights of what everyone thought as a top 10 pick way back, maybe even they were talking about him as a first overall at times. So I think he's going to be a really good middle six guy. Great all around player. I mean, he was really good defensively throughout the tournament too. So I mean, Islanders fans should be excited about this guy. I think he's going to be a big difference maker for them in the future. Kamel for Nashville. I mean, getting him where they got him. I mean, he's a pure shooter. Like that goal he scored against Canada there to tie the game. I mean, that's just a one-timer that most goalies aren't going to stop. So I mean, he's going to be doing that a lot for Nashville, I think, on that side of the ice on the power play. So definitely look out for him. And then Hirvonen, I'd say he was impressive from the beginning of the tournament on. Captain of the team, great, probably one of the best passers on the team too. And to get him in the second round of the Maple Leafs, I mean, again, there's another guy that's going to turn out to be a steal, I think, when he ends up in the NHL. So that whole top line are MVP for Finland for me. Okay, let's get to Sweden. Bronze medalists. Devin, who is your MVP for Sweden?
My MVP for Sweden is the guy with the word wall in his name. That would be Jesper Wallstedt. I had to bring that one back out. No, I just think whenever he was in goal, because he did have, I think, one game off, he just gave them the goaltending that they needed to have in order to have a chance to be in the medal round. Because let's face it, and this has kind of already been mentioned, Sweden did not perform the way that most of us thought they were going to perform in this tournament. They're kind of lackluster throughout. And that's weird to say about the bronze medalists, but I know I personally expected a lot more from them. And Wallstedt was there to make sure that they were in pretty much every game that he played in. And that's what you want from a goalie, and that's what you want from a goalie with his kind of pedigree. So shout out to Wallstedt for giving Sweden a chance. And then I also want to give a shout out to Emil Andre, because I thought this hurts me a little bit to say, but I do think he was their best defenseman. Honestly, he was kind of a little bit of everywhere, really made things happen pretty much every time he was on the ice. And I'm saying that about a team that had Simon Edvinsson on the team. So Andre, I think for him being kind of an under the radar, so to speak, guy on that blue line, for him to have the tournament that he had, I think a lot of people know that name now that maybe didn't before. So good on him.
Yeah, Andre was really, really good for Sweden. And I think he came out of nowhere for me. I mean, I liked him when he was in his draft year, but I actually I kind of forgot about him that he was on. He started playing. I mean, definitely the best defenseman on Sweden. And he had a tough shift there in the gold medal, or not the bronze medal game there. Took a couple penalties. But I mean, he's again, he was the captain of the team, right? Like, yeah. So again, another captain coming to play and being probably the best player on the team. So great job by Andre. And it's bad that he was the best player on a team full of offensive superstars. That's probably, but I mean, they ended up winning a bronze anyway. So it's they did well enough to win a medal. All right, Peter, you got Czechia. Who is your MVP for the team that surprisingly made it to the bronze medal game?
Yeah, this is a team that we didn't know how they were going to do offensively, and they needed to get goals. And who else but Jan Mysak to give them, the offense, the goals, and, to set up those plays that he needed to help bolster his team and help push them through to get them to this point, just above a point per game, 8 and 7. Named the top 3 player for the Czechia at the tournament, top 3 on the team, and was also named to the All-Star team as well. So obviously you must have done something right for your team in order to do that. Really, obviously you could look at maybe Yuri Kulich, underrated name, but you know what, Mysak, with the pedigree that he's had, or with the experience that he's had at the tournament, I really think he stood out very, very well in this tournament.
Yeah, Mysak. I mean, I've liked him for a long time as well, and he was the captain of the team too. So we're talking about a lot of captains. I mean, there's a reason why they have that C stitched onto their jersey. So, Mysak was really good, and again, another Montreal Canadiens prospect that we should be really excited to see in the future on a team on a prospect pool has quite a few now that are coming up, and 2 that didn't even play for Slovakia, who we'll talk about in a sec. But it's Misak was, again, he dominated the this is the QMJHL. Where's the O? Forget the OHL. He played really well over there in the OHL too, and Misak, definitely look forward to watching him in the NHL at some point. So definitely deserving the MVP. I've got Latvia, and this is a team that surprisingly got to where they are. I mean, everyone thought they were just going to be a throwaway team getting thrown in because Russia got banned from the tournament, and they were the next one up. But they ended up putting up a fight and getting to the quarterfinals, and winning their first World Junior game ever, and against Czechia, who made it to the bronze medal game. So, my gosh, I mean, this is a team that surprised everyone. And biggest guy that did most of the scoring for them was Ralphsburg Manis. And this is a defenseman. He had a hat trick in the game that brought him to the quarterfinal. What a performance by a guy that was undrafted and probably has got on some radars now of some NHL teams. I think he's definitely going to be there. And again, this guy's a captain. So lots of captains doing their thing, getting some goals, getting some points, and being at the forefront of their team. So another guy I kind of want to shout out is Martin Slavins. He took that bad 5-minute major at the end of the game there, and I felt so bad for him. But emotional leader for them, and great job by him. He had a goal and 2 points in the tournament. But Latvia's in general, what a performance by a team that wasn't expected to do anything at all. I mean, and they ended up making it and putting up a fight in it too. And they're saying when they came into that game, they're like, we're not just going to be run over. We're trying to win. And any team can win at any given point. You just have to have some good goaltending and some clutch performances, which that's what happened with Latvia to get him to that point in general. So what a great job by Latvia. So that's my MVPs, Ralphsburg Manis for sure. And then shout out to the Lavins as well. All right, Devin, let's get to the United States, who disappointingly never even got to the medal round. So who is their MVP? Because they did have a great tournament up to that point.
Yeah. RIP to the gold medal. Unfortunately, you guys get to have it back. My MVP, I'm gonna do this again where I've got one and then an honorable mention. My MVP is Thomas Bordeleau. Thomas Bordeleau was basically in on everything when it came to the United States offense. 7 assists, 8 points in 5 games. Not too shabby for the young man. Not a captain, but an alternate captain. So he does have a letter. So we're keeping the theme alive, kind of. Listen, for a team like the United States to finish the way that they finished in this tournament, you had to have had a lot of players that either underachieved or didn't quite hit the mark, so to speak. And I think that Bordeleau is kind of an exception. I think that he did everything you would expect of him coming into this tournament, and maybe even a little bit more. I know I wasn't necessarily expecting him to lead the team in scoring, but he did. And like I said, he was in on pretty much everything. And that's, again, what you want to see from one of your leaders. And then I will give a special shout out to the captain, Brock Faber. Brock Faber did not have a ton of points. He only had 2 points in the games he did play, but he was a +10. And plus minus is a flawed stat. We can talk about that for a whole episode if we want to. But for a player to be +10 on a team that underachieved and obviously did not even medal, I think that speaks volumes to the fact that a lot of good things were happening on the ice when he was on the ice. He led by example. We're in that C. And I think he just did things the right way most of the time, basically. And again, that's what you want to see from your captain. Didn't, grab the spotlight in the way that I think Bordeleau did. But I do think that if you're a Minnesota Wild fan, I think that that Kevin Fiala trade is looking better and better by the day.
Yeah, definitely. Faber, again, he's playing in the backyard now, Minnesota. Yeah. So definitely be watching for him in the future because and Bordeleau had a heck of a tournament and probably dangerous almost every time he was on the ice. Did everything for them too. So yeah, great picks for MVPs and the honorable mention there. All right, Peter, you got Switzerland, a team that kind of did put up a fight against Canada there. I actually probably freaked him out for a second. Who was their MVP?
I mean, with a team like Switzerland, and now we're getting to that border or like that portion of the standings where, you know, obviously the record doesn't show up, but you're going to have players that are actually going to be their best players. And Attilio Biasca was their best player regardless, no matter how you look at that. And obviously you can't find anyone else because he did most of the scoring. I mean, you're looking at the roster right now. He led the team in scoring with 6 points, 4 goals. Next one was Dario Allingsbach. So a little bit behind him, even Joshua Farney. Those two were right behind Biasca in terms of production, but he was leading the charge offensively. And you hate to say, oh, he was the one to just make or like to try and make points the whole entire important thing. But for them, he was the one doing a lot of the heavy work offensively, and the fact that he was able to get 4 goals out of that, and I believe he was also named to being the top 3 player for Switzerland as well. Obviously did something right in order to do that. Obviously he made sure that he gave Switzerland a fighting chance every single game. So for him to do that and earn that award, leading the team in scoring, he's my MVP for Switzerland.
Yeah, you mentioned Switzerland being, I think they're more of the team game. I mean, there's not really one that kind of stands out as being really good. And they always do play such a good team game. That's why they can surprise teams, because they play such a good structure. And their goaltending is usually something that always has problems for teams. I still remember that Martin Gerber one in the Olympics that took out Canada, and just because he just couldn't be beaten. A shutout on 50 plus shots, I think it was. So Switzerland can do that. And that's why I said to be careful when Canada was playing against them, but they put up a good fight in general. So as a team, they were really good too. All right, I've got Slovakia, and very disappointing. I mean, that they were missing quite a few big pieces, though. I mean, you're looking at the first overall pick wasn't playing. Slavkovsky, their best defenseman, wasn't playing in Simon Nimitz. So that's usually a recipe for a disaster. You take away your best player and your best defenseman, usually not going to have a good time. But they had some good standouts. I'm going to say Matej Kazlik was probably the guy that stood out for me the most. Had 3 goals in the tournament, and I'd say every time I watched, he was probably the most noticeable guy on the ice. So I mean, Dalibor Dvorsky was pretty good for a guy that's at 2023 draft eligible here. Had a goal and an assist. He's going to be probably one of the top 10 guys at the draft. So to have him have pretty good tournament, that's pretty good for usually 2023 guys don't stand out unless you're like Connor Bedard. But yeah, for what he did, I think Dvorsky had a pretty good tournament, and then Kazlik probably the most standout, not just from stats. I think he was probably the most noticeable in the tournament as well for Slovakia. It was missing some big pieces, and I don't think a lot of people thought they were going to compete a lot because of missing those guys. So in general, they were missing 2 first-round picks, and then their best, or the 3 first-round picks they were missing. So that's pretty big. All right, Devin, you got Germany, MVP for the Germans, who actually again put up a pretty good fight in that quarterfinal round.
Yes, I do, and let's kind of start this off by saying that this is not the German team that had the likes of Moritz Seider or I'm drawing a blank.
Stutzla.
Stutzla, Paterka. Yep. Listen, we've had a big wave of great German prospects come through over the last 3 years specifically. Yeah. And this, not to take anything away from this German team, but that star power just kind of wasn't there this year. And, to no fault of anyone on the team, but the player that most stood out to me for good and bad reasons, I guess, is Bennett Rosmi. He was the only player on the team to have a point per game average, 5 points in 5 games, led the team in goals, 4 goals, 5 games. Also, by far led the team in penalty minutes, 29. The next closest person on the team had 6. So as much as he was obviously their best or most potent offensive player, he in the box a little bit too much, but hey, whatever. I think just to kind of underline what I kind of led with there, this team didn't have a ton of superstars. Luka Munzenberger was there. He's an Edmonton Oilers prospect. He's somebody to keep an eye on, over the next few years here. And even somebody like Hakan Henoltz, Washington Capitals prospect. They had drafted guys on this team. It's not like they had nobody. But I think Rosmi just stood out the way that you would expect players to stand out in the sense of being an MVP. Just would have liked to have seen him play a little bit more of a clean game.
Yeah, that's true. Having so many penalty minutes and be so far ahead of everyone else, probably not a good thing. Yeah. So definitely, for sure. All right, Peter, you got the last team, Austria, and they were last. They didn't win a game, but they had some standout players. What did you think about Austria?
Yeah, and similar situation with Switzerland. You don't want to solely base this on points because of the fact that they didn't get a win or anything like that, and they were the last place team in the tournament. But good thing for Austria, there's no relegation, no nothing. So they're still have the opportunity to come back and, still put their best foot forward in 2023. But I mean, you don't want to base it solely on points, but St. Peters was one of the top team or the top players leading the team in production as well. Behind Ian Scherzer with or tied with Ian Scherzer with 3 points. Again, top 3 player for the Austria. Really, I still don't understand how teams haven't really picked up on him, because he's got a lot of great qualities in his skill set. He's got, great size. He's obviously, there may have been some issues with overall consistency and maybe trying to piece everything together and trying to find that common aspect that will just vault him over the next or vault him into, top, not necessarily top prospect, but like, to a 7th round pick kind of thing. Cause he has great playmaking abilities, great hands, very strong. And I thought that was on display in this tournament. And I thought that obviously Austria in the 21 tournament, again, didn't have great results, but I thought he had a really good tournament for Austria this time around. And I hope that he's put himself on the map and teams are looking at him, because now as an overager, he's got the size to be an all-around factor in the offensive zone with his hands, with his size to get in front of the net and be a factor to just get in the goalie's way and kind of just be a bit of a pest all around. So he's my MVP for Austria, and I hope that this is something that's going to benefit him and getting a contract or getting a team to look at him in the future, because he's got a lot of qualities that teams look at right now.
Yeah, St. Peters has been on my radar, I think, the last 2 drafts, and every time he doesn't get drafted. So it's like, come on, why not? But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this tournament kind of put some more eyes on him. Maybe some scouts saw him and can either he gets drafted. He has 1 more year of eligibility, doesn't he? Or so
at least so, yeah.
So if not, he can be signed as well. So we'll see if anyone kind of catches on with him finally. All right, let's get to some other guys you kind of want to spotlight. There was quite a few good performances on all the teams. So, I mean, we did mention a few. Devin, do you have anyone else you kind of want to just give a shout out to over any of the teams that were in this tournament?
Yeah, I got 2 real quick. One you did mention when you were talking about Finland, but I want to mention him again. That'd be Atiratu. I think as time has gone on since that 2021 draft, I think those concerns that were out there about him are starting to disappear, or at least become a lot quieter, because ever since he was drafted, he's done nothing but put up points and look like the player that everybody kind of thought he might be. Do agree with you that I don't think he's going to be like the top player to come out of that draft, and he fell all the way to the second round. But I do think he probably should not have fallen to the second round. And good on him for performing on a stage like this, because that was one of the biggest reasons why people did sour on him, is that he did not perform on big stages. So good on him. And then the other player I want to highlight would be Carter Mazur. And it's not because I cover the Red Wings. I do think he had a little bit of a coming out party himself. 7 points, I believe, in 5 games, a goal per game average. And he showcased what he does. He does a little bit of everything. He can obviously produce offensively. He gets in the dirty areas of the ice. He can even contribute at the other end of the rink. And I think that for him as a 3rd round pick, looking like even more and more of a real good pick for the Red Wings. And he's the type of player that as long as they hit their potential, fans gravitate to and they love. And I don't know, I've really liked what I've seen out of Mazur over. I mean, not even just the World Juniors, just this past year, even with Denver. But yeah, this World Juniors, I really think Mazur made a name for himself internationally. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we've mentioned him on Grindline quite a few times too, and he was probably one of the more impressive guys from the 9 players that were there for the Red Wings. And for some reason, I keep thinking he's not American, but maybe it's his last name sounds like it's like Slovakian or something.
It's spelled a little weird, so yeah.
But he is American. Yeah, so definitely great shout outs there. Peter, you have anyone that you kind of want to mention and give a shout out to that we haven't mentioned already?
Well, I was going to say
briefly.
Brennan Othman, but I'm not going to say Brennan Othman. We talked about him way too many times, but hopefully I don't take this player from you, Matt. It's Logan Stankoven. When Ridley Gregg went down, obviously you needed some players to step up. And as soon as he went down with that injury, it seemed like Logan Stankoven was just shot out of a cannon. You saw everything that made him such a special talent in the WHL. And, we talked about Asuratu being a 2nd round pick. I don't know how he fell down to the 2nd round, but again, Dallas Stars are just like, Mr. Burnsing everything, just going excellent right now. So to have Logan Stankoven have the tournament that he did, especially later on in the last 2-3 games, was something really special for him. And the fact that, he finished the tournament, I believe, with 10 points overall. So yeah, I mean, you can't complain about production. Maybe at the start, yeah, it wasn't that great, but 4 goals, 10 points overall. And to have that chemistry that he had with Kent Johnson was just absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, you're going to look at players to come back for the 23 tournament, and you can rest assured that Stankoven is going to be on Canada's radar this time around, or could possibly be a lock for that team after the way that he just, I just basically, again, like he just turned on the Jets. Like something clicked in his mind and said, you know what, now it's go time. Now it's time to up my game. He did that. He caught my eye. Pretty sure he caught everyone's eye. And I'm pretty sure the Dallas Stars, again, they're probably just, ecstatic that they have him in their system right now.
Yeah, well, you did steal him from me, but whatever. It's
sorry.
Sorry. I can always add on. But yeah, Stankoven's like I've interviewed the kid too, and he's so down to earth as well. I mean, his personality is really good. He's going to be a heck of an NHLer. And again, this is a player that went to the 2nd round that the Canucks could have drafted from Kamloops in their backyard, and they missed him. They go for a Belarus Klimovich, which, I mean, I'm not against him. I mean, I think he's going to be a heck of an NHL player too. But what Stankoven has done the last since he got drafted, even during his draft year, it's just been insane. And the way he took over after Ridley Gregg went down, like you said, Piers, was insane too. I mean, the way he forechecks is like a madman. That there was one shift there. The guy's probably like, just get off me, man. And there was, geez.
He shows no fear.
Yeah,
and despite the size, he doesn't care if he's going up against a guy who's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's going in there full force, and he's going to battle. And that's what I like about him every single time. He never gives up.
That's what you want out of players that size too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I say, he's going to surprise a lot of people in the NHL. I think he's going to be 20, 30 goal scorer. And yeah, Dallas got a steal. That's for sure in that second round. So again, there's another guy to keep an eye out. We've talked about him a few times on the show. I think he's been prospect of the week a few times. So if you don't know who Stankoven is right by now, definitely know who he is after that performance in the gold medal game and in the last few games there as the tournament. All right, for me, I mean, I'll shout out a couple guys. Robbie Järventie, Ottawa Senators draft pick. Again, here's a guy that's going to be lethal on the power play. If he can get that one-timer off at that one side, which is usually not the side that you have one-timers. Most of the time we see Ovechkin spots on the left side. This guy gets him on the right side. Just like, well, Pedersen goes on the right side too. So, but yeah, Järventie was lethal on the power play. Probably the only goals he scored were on the power play, but I mean, he was noticeable almost every game on a power play, the best in the tournament. So Järventie was a guy for me, and of course, I talked about Stankoven, so that's my other guy as well, because yeah, he was really good. All right, let's get to our version of the awards, which are probably going to repeat of what actually happened, but just see if we agree with all of them. Peter, we'll start with you. Do you agree that Wallstedt was the best goaltender of this tournament?
Yes. Next question.
Devin, agreed. Wallstedt is the best goaltender.
What Peter said.
We've talked about Wallstedt quite a bit on this show too. You don't know who he is. He was really good for Sweden on a team that didn't really give him a lot of support. So definitely,
you don't know who he is. Shame on you.
Yes,
it's the guy with Wall in his name. Come on now.
It was pretty much a Wall. If his team would have been able to score more, I think he would have been fine.
Yeah,
and actually may have had the gold medal.
Might have been overall MVP at that point.
Yeah, that's right. All right, best defender. We've got a few maybe different opinions on this one. Casper Puutio actually won it, but there were a few other names. Peter, do you agree with Puutio being the best defender, or do you have someone else?
I thought he really stood out. I think he, maybe deserved he most definitely deserved the award, but obviously he wouldn't be my favorite. Obviously, you look at what Emil Andre did and what Erwin Zellweger did, and not just his fully basis on points, but they were difference makers for their respective teams. And when they needed a goal, when they needed a point, they really needed their best defenders to step up or even joining the rush and be a factor from the blue line. And they were. And that's nothing to take away from Puutio. I mean, 7 points is still respectful, but I would have gone with Zellweger or Andre based on, how dynamic they were in leading the charge from the back end and just being absolutely dynamic and being a force.
Yeah, I actually really liked Puutio's game throughout the whole tournament. He was probably Finland's best defender had Topi Niemela, so he was the best defender last year. So Puutio really stepped up and played a lot of minutes on Finland. So I agree with Puutio being that, but there's so many other guys like you mentioned, Zellweger, Andre, both definitely deserving of it as well. Devin, do you agree with Puutio being there, or do you have someone else you want to kind of mention?
We're going to make it 2 in a row that I say what Peter said.
All right.
Like
easy,
verbatim.
easy. Right.
Quote unquote.
All right. Best forward. And this one's probably going to be unanimous. Mason McTavish won it. Agreed all the way. Mason McTavish.
Yeah.
There you go. Lots of great performances throughout this, especially for Canada, and US had quite a few as well. But McTavish throughout the whole tournament, best by far. 1 point from matching the record that went back to 1973, 1972. So he was pretty close.
And also, did you see that save?
Did you see this? Just get it. Just add that on. Well, we don't want to give him the best goaltender too, or
Wallstedt / McTavish.
If it's not Wallstedt, it's McTavish.
Yeah. No, definitely best forward and best play of the tournament too.
Yeah,
we'll add that as well. All right, media all-star team, and this said we'll give our own, because again, this can be different from the ones that are returned. So let's give our own. Peter, who is your all-star team if you were picking it?
Well, to do the defense, goaltender, Wallstedt, Andre Zellweger, forwards. Yeah, you're still looking at McTavish, Kemmel, but I probably would have thrown in Kent Johnson in there as well. Not to discredit what Misak did, because he really carried Czechia, but I mean, I probably just the way that, you know, how McTavish saved the goal and then Johnson scored it, and then and also even without that goal, the Michigan that he scored early on in the tournament, and how he was just generating chances after chances and just being dynamic and being a force on the attack no matter what, you know, just making moves like nobody's business around defenders and around opposing players. Like I was just absolutely in awe what he was able to do with the hands that he has. And we talked about last year how great his hands were in the draft. Still sublime right now, and I think he's even reached the new heights with his puck handling and his creativity. So probably throw him in there. And I don't know if Devin was laughing, mocking me or something like that, but no, or is this the repeat again kind of thing?
That's what I'm
probably going to be a repeat, because I'm maybe inside Devin's head right now. So I'll stop talking and maybe let Devin explain.
Devin, you have the same media all-star team?
Yeah, people watching are going to think I didn't do my homework or something, because that's 3 in a row. So I'm going to say what Peter said.
Yeah, I'm definitely in Devin's head right
now. Well, you're pretty close to mine too. I've got Wallstedt, I have McTavish for sure. Kemmel's there, and yeah, I would say Kent Johnson. I'm going to say Logan Stankoven. I'll give him another shout.
Hey, there you go.
If it's not Johnson
/ Kent Johnson.
Yeah.
Mesh them together. Yeah, and then for defense, I like Olin Zellweger. Zellweger's definitely in there, and I'm going to say Casper Puttio being my second D there. Emil Andre for sure in that conversation, but I really loved Puttio's game throughout the whole tournament and both ways, both ends of the ice. So on the guy that wasn't a high end, someone that everyone was kind of looking for coming in. So he's on my all-star team. All right, tournament MVP. I mean, McTavish. I mean, he won it. Is that agreed upon throughout the whole thing? Is he tournament MVP?
Did you see that save?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say Mason McTavish as MVP, but you know what? If we're not doing it solely just based on what happened there, I think if anything, you could have made an argument for Jesper Wallstedt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, probably biggest reason why Sweden won the bronze medal. I mean, especially when you didn't have, like I said, we've said, not a lot of support offensively. When your defenseman is their leading scorer or something. Miss. So
if Sweden was in the gold medal game, I think Wallstedt would have got more consideration for MVP. For sure. But then again, McTavish, what he did, just phenomenal. Even if he didn't make that save in, it was a different opponent. So
definitely. I think he probably would still win it for sure. All right, so that was our recap. Let's do some final quick hits here. We got a few questions that we haven't really addressed, or maybe a little bit. Let's start with a guy that Connor Bedard, which we kind of really maybe unfairly hyped up ahead of this tournament, but he was amazing nonetheless. I mean, he had some frustrations throughout where he couldn't get his plays away like we maybe normally thinks he can. But I mean, that shot, my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's probably the best I've seen in a long time. And in Vancouver here, we have Marcus Naslund, who's probably the best wrist shot the Canucks had. We've seen Joe Sakic and his shot. I'd say it's pretty close to what Sakic does. So let's ask this question, Peter. Did Connor Bedard meet your expectations? As unfairly as we did put him up, but did they meet what you expected from him going into this tournament?
I think so, and I think he even surpassed them a little bit. Again, we're probably putting Bedard on a pedestal right now because he is the first overall pick, but how can you deny or argue against the shot, the poise, and the confidence that he has at such a young age? And I could go on length as to why he shouldn't be on that third line and how he should have been in the top six, where he still could have been produced and being a factor even with Ridley Gregg out. But, even playing with Will Cooley and Nathan Gauthier after that, he obviously the other two had a hard time keeping up with the way how quick he plays with the pace. But Bedard himself is still phenomenal, still getting those chances at 5-on-5 on the power play, still being dangerous. And also he can hit and he isn't afraid at all. Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing why I think he surpassed my expectations. He's got a little bite to his game and I love it.
Yeah. And he's undersized. Yeah. He's not 6'2" or whatever, but he's fearless and going into the corners there. And I love those shots where he's like his shot and he's like putting so much effort into putting that shot on goal. I mean, I love it. And Bedard, whoever gets him, and we don't know who's going to get him, but he's going to be a heck of an NHL player. I mean, just that shot alone is going to score him 30, 40 goals. And that's going to be probably a given every year. All right, Devin, what did you think about Connor Bedard? Did he meet your expectations?
Well, forget bend it like Beckham. You want to bend it like Connor Bedard's stick. Because holy cow.
Bend it like Bedard.
Yeah, bend it like Bedard. We'll coin that one. Add it to our list of phrases. No, I think he definitely met and probably even surpassed him a little bit. I think that it would have been a little superhuman of him to not experience some form of struggles in this tournament, right? Yeah. Like we're still talking about a 17-year-old, or he's not even drafted yet. He's best prospect, undrafted prospect in the world right now. But even with that, you're going to experience ups and downs when you're playing against the other best prospects in the world, some of them which are drafted. And like you both have already said, he's got that bite that you don't necessarily see in a bunch of skill players. That's kind of it's a rarity when you have skill and snarl in your game. And good on him for having it, especially with him being undersized. And then also just he was confident to play his game on this stage. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying I was doubting his ability to do that, but I do think it shows confidence and it shows moxie that on a stage like this, he goes out and he just plays Connor Bedard's game. And he stands out for it. I think that, if you had questions or doubts or whatever, that he's going to be the top player out of next year's draft, obviously we're still months, almost a year out still, but you should not have doubts because this kid is for real. And this kid's going to be hanging out on top of draft rankings for the foreseeable future, basically between now and when the picks are actually made. So get used to hearing kind of Bedard's name, and then get used to seeing it on top of rankings.
Yeah, he's going to be up there for I don't think there's going to be any doubt going into draft day of who's going to be first overall. At least there shouldn't be. Yeah. So I mean, Bedard, heck of a tournament. Even at 17 years old, like you said, he had a bit of frustrations where he couldn't get his shot away at his points where he wanted to, and he had some trouble in defensive zone. All young players do. I mean, that's just the name of the game. He'll figure that out. But his offensive game is just off the charts. So looking forward to him doing a lot of damage in the NHL. And thing is, I want to say one thing about he was put in the wrong position on the power play. He is not a bumper guy. You don't put him in the bumper. Like, come on. Like, Marcus Nazem was never in the bumper. Joe Sakic was never in the bumper position. So I'm just gonna finish it off with that.
Austin Matthews was never in the bumper. Ovechkin was never in the bumper. Stamkos was never in the bumper. See the pattern?
They should not be there. That's what we're saying. Okay, let's go to some other guys. Starting with you, Devin. Who rose their stock the most going into the 2022-23 season? They're getting a little bit of a head start on training camp. Not saying a lot of these guys will make NHL camps, although there are a few like Kent Johnson and Mason McTavish will probably be on NHL teams this year. But who rose their stock and put themselves ahead of the game going into this season?
Well, I think maybe the obvious or easy, whatever you want to call it, answer is Mason McTavish. And I mean, we kind of expected him to have a really, really good tournament, but he had a superb tournament. Let's just call it like it is. And I think he's got to be riding a high like no other. He's got a gold medal around his neck. He's tournament MVP. And he should have every opportunity in front of him to make the Anaheim Ducks roster heading into the 2022-23 season. Obviously, he already got that 9-game audition last year, so already kind of knows what he's in for. It's tough to say, did he raise his profile the most? Because he definitely already had a profile. And we kind of already expected him to have a good tournament. But I do think that the level of which he played at, and for him to make that crucial play at a crucial time. And, obviously he was the captain of Team Canada, and all these things kind of put together. And I think that, I don't know, he was drafted 3rd overall for a reason, right? And I think that this tournament, maybe more so than any other time he's played between when he was drafted and now, I think he's really kind of showed why the Ducks were confident in taking him that high, and why you should expect to see him wearing the Ducks uniform for this coming season. So I'm going to say McTavish, but I definitely think that there are other players out there that maybe announce themselves in a different way than McTavish did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with McTavish being probably, I don't know if he, like you said, I don't know if he raised his stock. Everyone probably thought he was probably going to make the NHL. But I think he's more highly anticipated now.
Yeah.
Because of how much he's done at the World Juniors going into this season. So Ducks fans are definitely going to be watching him in the preseason and beyond. Peter, who do you have as raising their stock the most going into this coming season? Either be, that they've already had it, or have they become a guy that you could potentially see that we never thought of in the past?
I'm going to say Ridley Gregg. I'm because of the fact that he showed no fear. There were times where he was in the shooting lane blocking shots, and it was unfortunate that he dealt with that injury towards the end, but he did it all for Canada. Being physical, being aggressive on the forecheck, scoring that ridiculous one-handed goal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for, obviously the Ottawa Senators have, a really decent prospect pool right now with Jake Sanderson, Robbie Arventi, who we talked about earlier, but really Gregg is a name that you really should be I think should be a top prospect for them right now, because of the fact that, he's that kind of workhorse that he does everything, doesn't quit, shows no mercy, no nothing. And he's going to lay everything all on the line, as we saw in this tournament. No matter what, he's going to be in the mix for everything, offensively, defensively, in the neutral zone, just to negate an attack. Those are the kind of players that teams value right now, that you want in your middle six. And Gregg is going to thrive in that role. I thought that if he was healthy for the next few games, he would have surpassed a little bit more and improved his stock a little bit. Because if you're looking for like fantasy players that can hit, block shots, do everything, score, look at Ridley Gregg. You look for him to be one of those players that can get you points in a fantasy hockey league. So, or if you're just a fan in general, to possibly win a championship, he's going to be a guy that's going to be doing everything in every single situation. So Ridley Gregg is my pick.
Oh, 100% agree with Gregg. I think he's going to, like I said, Ottawa's improved quite a bit in the offseason with their additions. So he's probably not going to have as big of a chance if they didn't do that. But he's going, when he does make it, like I think they compared him to JG Pajot as being that type of a good middle six guy, and wins faceoffs, kills penalties, does those little things to win games. And I think Gregg's going to be probably a guy that's going to be a reason for a Stanley Cup in the future. He's one of those guys that push teams to those championships. So definitely look out for him. It's unfortunate to see him get hurt. I think he would have been a really big factor in that gold medal game too. But yeah, I agree with that. Those two guys as well. All right, let's get to some underwhelming. There's always guys that disappoint, or teams. There were some teams, like we mentioned already, one team. Devin, do you have a team or a player that kind of underwhelmed? They were underwhelmed by at the end of this tournament.
Yeah, I'll start by reiterating that Sweden underwhelmed me. I definitely expected more from them. But to pivot away from Sweden and give a specific player, I'm going to say Brad Lambert. And maybe it's unfair. He was just drafted and, all sorts of expectations to throw on 18-year-olds. But 1 goal in 5 games. That's his only point. -2, not the most flattering stat line. But there's also just the fact that similar to Atu Ratu, right? Was considered at one point in time a top 5 talent in the 2022 draft. And he kind of fell, and he didn't fall all the way to the second round like Ratu did. But secretly kind of held out hope that he would have, he would kind of right the ship with this tournament and maybe not explode or anything, but just kind of produce and show that his struggles from this past season, or at least his lack of production, was not anything to really, be too concerned about. But on a team that won the silver medal, he kind of was just there. And I don't know. I think that he has more to give, and maybe that he, if he attends the tournament in December, he'll show more. And there's all sorts of variables. And maybe he just wasn't in the right spot in the lineup. Maybe there's all sorts of factors that could have played a role here. But I just know that out of a player that I truly believe has sky high potential, regardless of what happened to him this past year, I wanted to see more, and I didn't see more. So I'm going to say Brad Lambert disappointed me a little bit.
Yeah, and that was going to be my pick. Brad Lambert's just, I mentioned him on the podcast the other day as being kind of underwhelming. I thought he was good in the first game, and that was basically it when he scored his goal.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, maybe Lambert is going to surprise and start scoring here. But yeah, he kind of was disappeared. He made a disappearing act for most of the rest of the tournament. So I still think he's going to be a good NHL player. He's still really young. He's still got some time to develop, and he'll probably develop pretty well in that Winnipeg Jets system. So I think we should be panicking yet, but it was disappointing to see him not kind of come and play like Ratu did. And maybe he's saving that for for the 2023 one. Yeah. maybe we'll see.
And you see a difference from that, short canceled tournament and this one, where he was, putting doubters to rest, saying that, this is the real Brad Lambert. And then you see this tournament right now, 1 goal in 5 games, being made a healthy scratch at times. Maybe you were starting to see what scouts said about, his overall inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Catching up to him right now, and lo and behold, it costed him a roster spot on the team, and he was no longer, a key player for them. So, yeah, like both of you, I'm still high on him. That maybe he does clue in, he does, get the bad habits out, and he does, start to play a more mature and well-rounded game. But right now, what we saw from Brad Lambert wasn't a good sign. Obviously, still a lot of time, but if you're the Winnipeg Jets right now, you're doing your evaluations from like the tournament or what you want to expect of him, having your meetings with him. There's going to be a lengthy meeting, I would hope.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I say, he has a lot of skill, and hopefully he can kind of put it together eventually. I say he's still young.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Lambert. Peter, you have anyone else you want to mention, or are we just going with Lambert?
Yeah, just going with Brad Lambert, because I mean, you look at all the other star players on every single team, they really stood and rose to the occasion. Even though Sweden disappointed early on, later on their stars started to pick it up.
Yeah.
And same thing with Team USA, their stars played until, just that one game and a few bad bounces against Czechia where it didn't quite work out. So it's hard to pinpoint one other name, especially how deep Canada, Finland, Czechia, US, Sweden were. So yeah. I was just going to stick with Brad Lambert as well. Make it, 3-peat.
There we go. I wanted to say Lekaramaki, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because the fact he didn't play a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe like 10 minutes ish.
Yeah.
Still put up 3 assists. 6 minutes and he still had 3 assists. So, I mean, shows some good flashes too of his speed. And so a good shot as well. So I'm again, Canucks fans that were on Twitter, they were kind of already freaking out. I'm like, don't freak out. He's not like traditionally 18-year-olds don't dominate this tournament anyway. So
you should have seen Lee's Twitter about Matthew Nyes.
Yeah.
It's already begun.
Yeah, that's right. That's what's bad about being drafted by a Canadian team. Just saying. All right, let's get to this. Is a quick one. Will Mason McTavish and Kent Johnson play in the 2023 tournament? Because, like we said, McTavish is probably going to make the NHL. Kent Johnson will probably play in Columbus. Will they let them go to this next tournament and dominate again? Peter, what do you think? No,
I'm not a betting man, but if I were to bet, I probably think that they would not be there. Kent Johnson had his little or mini showcase at the end of last season. He looked really great. McTavish had it at the beginning. Hard to think that with all the pro experience they played with, I think they're going to be on the NHL roster, and I think they're going to stick there.
Yeah, I agree. I think Johnson just shown that he can play in the NHL, and he's just gotten better, more confidence in his game. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. I don't think Anaheim, even depending on, again, you say depending on where they are in the standings, but at the time at Christmas, a lot of teams are still kind of thinking, okay, we still have a chance. Yeah. Unless you're like totally down in the basement like Arizona was last year, where you're like, okay, we're not going to do anything. But I think Anaheim's going to be a much better team this year. McTavish is going to probably be a key part of that. So I don't think they're going to want to let him go for 2 weeks. So yeah, I don't think that's happening. Devin, do you agree? Do you think Mason McTavish and Johnson won't be playing in the 2023 tournament?
Yeah, I definitely don't think McTavish is going to play. I think that there's a chance that Kent Johnson goes. And I do think it kind of coincides with how Columbus is doing, how Johnson's doing. I think there's some variables that play there to where Johnson could go, but I wouldn't bet on it, like Peter said. And I definitely, there's no way in hell Mason's going after getting the MVP.
I'd be really surprised if he was playing. I think they've already kind of said, okay, he's done. I don't think he's going to be here anymore. But heck of a send-off what he did. So I don't think he wants to come back. So I just want to end this at this point. I don't know if you want to end with not another gold medal. And that could potentially happen, right? Yeah. So you want to end your tournament, end your international play, or at least junior international. I think he's going to be in the Olympics at one point. Never mind. He's already been at the Olympics. In a more prompt. I'm going to just stop. He's already played everywhere you could think of. So it's kind of hard to say where he's been in the Olympics. I forgot about that. So I think he's going to be a big prominent piece of an Olympic team when all the NHL players are playing that. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, and we're going to heap on the United States to end this show. What happened to the U.S. against Czechia, a team that they should have probably beat? Peter, do you have any explanation why the U.S. just couldn't get by this team?
Couple of bad bounces, especially on the third goal. I think Caden Mbereko would have loved to have that one back. It just snuck by. But, U.S.'s first goal was off a bad bounce. Czechia's first goal was off a bad bounce. So it kind of balanced out there. But I think overall, defensively, they just didn't quite have it. I think maybe they underestimated their opponent a little bit because the quick counterattack from Czechia and, the underrated skill set that they have, I think proved to be a little bit or caught Team USA off guard. So I think a mix of those bad bounces, a mix of underestimating the opponent, and a mix of, poor defensive play not necessarily finally caught up to them, but it caught up to them in, probably the worst possible time. And it's funny because I thought I had some doubts about the USA's goaltending going into the tournament, but Caden Mbereko was fantastic. Yeah. Hard to pin the loss on him based on the numbers and, the stats that he had. So if there's a team looking for a goalie and want to draft a goalie, Caden Mbereko is still available. So keep him on your radar.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think the U.S. is Czechia played a really good game too. You got to give them credit. Sure. And they played a great defensive game.
They had that extra gear.
Yeah. And they just seemed like they just kind of played their perfect game at the right time. And they were probably hoping it was going to continue, but it never did. All right, Devin, what do you think? Anything to add on to that? Why the U.S. wasn't able to get into the medal rounds and actually compete for that gold medal again?
Yeah, I think it was kind of just a perfect storm of certain elements coming into play. You had Czechia play a really good game and kind of just take almost everything away from the United States. You did have a couple fluky bounces. And I also think you just had a classic case of things, players not starting on time and things just kind of not going players' ways. This happens to the best teams in the world, where you just kind of have a game where things just don't go right for one reason or another. And hockey's a random game like that, where, if you don't, for one reason or another, you might not start right, or bounces don't go your way and you're just not winning that game. And unfortunately, in a tournament like this, where you don't get 7 games to even out all the bad bounces and the bad starts and all these other things, it's, one and done. You either win or you don't. And unfortunately, it kind of just went against the States this time. I think that most players, if not every player on the team, will tell you that they did not have the tournament that they wanted to have, obviously as a team, but as individuals as well. But I don't think that I don't know. I don't think that they should necessarily hang their heads, because I don't think that they beat themselves. I just think it was kind of they ran against a good team that played them well, and things just kind of didn't go their way. If they play that game again, who knows what the result is. Yeah. And like Peter said, they got good goaltending. They if they had the ingredients there to pull off a win, it just didn't go their way. And that's hockey. That's life.
Yeah. Well, that's like we say, even with the NCAA, when we're talking about, like, I think we were talking about Michigan. Oh, they'll win it.
Yeah.
One game turn, like Greg said in that episode. I mean, one game, and it can take you out. And that's what happened. That's what happened to the U.S. You don't get, like you said, Devin, you don't get the 7 games for it to all balance out. You have one bad game, and it's and the other team just has a heck of a game. You're going to lose. And that's just how it goes, unfortunately. And that's how the game of hockey works when there's those 1-game knockouts. So, and that's what makes this tournament so good too. I mean, all these games, you're not sure what's going to happen. Doesn't matter what team you're playing. You got to play your best hockey at every point, because you never know what the other team's going to all of a sudden have a goaltending performance that you just can't get by. So that happens more often than not. So, but the U.S. will have another chance in a few months to right that ship and continue it, and hopefully they can get to the medal rounds this time, and hopefully maybe we can get a Canada-U.S. Gold medal game, because I was hoping that would
always be ideal.
But again, Canada-Finland was amazing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not regretting it, because it was a really good game.
Oh yeah.
All right, so that puts an end to another episode of Prospect Corner here. Thanks for joining us. So World Juniors recap show, and we're going to do this all over again, and we'll start doing our preview shows again in a few months, and we'll start our stuff, and hopefully definitely be able to keep going with it and do our normal schedule instead of stopping and going into August, because this will be a normal way in New Brunswick and Moncton. So that's going to be a fun tournament. It's going to be in Canada again. So definitely tune in for that. And of course, check out all of our coverage at hockeywriters.com, because we'll be doing this all over again, and just in a couple months' time. But till then, we'll have our normal stuff. And this is actually our season finale, because our season premiere, season 2 of Prospect Corner, we're going to start with our top 100 prospects, which is getting a massive update. Thanks, Peter, putting it all together, and we all kind of contributed to that. It took about 30 prospects each to write up some write-ups for it. And if you've read that before, we do that like 3 times in the year, something like that. So definitely check out that season premiere. That's coming out soon, so check that out. Thanks again for joining us for all these episodes in season 1. We can't thank you enough, all our views and all the comments, and thanks so much. And we'll see you in season 2. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Devin. We will see you next time.